Welcome to NTD News. I'm Jasmina Davis. Here are today's top stories. President Trump promises to deliver jobs, safety, and freedom. He was pitching to the crowd at a rally in Florida. A Senate report says Hunter Biden got over $3 million from a Russian billionaire. It happened when his dad was vice president. The billionaire later won a contract from a museum in the United States. An FBI investigation is underway as more discarded mail-in ballots are found by authorities, 9 of them in Pennsylvania. 7 of the ballots were cast by President Trump by members of the military. Leaders of Capitol Hill Baptist Church are suing the district's mayor. It's over an order that prevents gathering to worship brought in during the pandemic. Democrats in the House are putting forward legislation that would expand Congress's power and curb the executive branch. It's partly in response to Trump's actions as president. President Trump at a rally in Florida calls the Republican Party the party of jobs, safety, and freedom. He says America's way of life stands in opposition to the ideology of communism. Here's the latest on the 2020 U.S. presidential election.
President Trump speaking to his supporters at an evening rally in Jacksonville, Florida. He praised Hispanic Americans and positioned the ideal of the American dream in contrast to the ideologies of communist Cuba and socialist Venezuela.
The Republican Party is the party of jobs, safety, and freedom, and we will ensure that America never becomes a socialist or communist country.
President Trump is packing his schedule in the lead up to the election. He's scheduled to speak to Latino voters at a roundtable in Doral on Friday. Then he'll fly to Atlanta, Georgia to deliver a speech on Black economic empowerment. He'll end the day with another rally in Newport News, Virginia. Speaking of his Democratic opponent, Joe Biden.
Supposing he never campaigns and he wins, you know how badly I'm going to feel? I'm working hard. And you got to work hard. And you know what? I said it today. We cannot have a low-energy individual as our president. We can't.
The president noted Republican Senator Mitt Romney's recent vote of support to proceed with replacing the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the Supreme Court. President Trump has appointed 2 Supreme Court justices so far.
This will be my third, and we're in great shape. Do you see what's going on with the Republican Party, how unified the Republican Party is?
The GOP now say they have enough votes to move forward. President Trump has affirmed he will announce his nominee 5 p.m. Saturday.
A new report by Senate Republicans is raising questions about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. One example, Russia's richest woman sent his company $3.5 million for a consultancy agreement.
A Senate report says Hunter Biden had a financial relationship with Russian businesswoman Elena Baturina while his father was vice president. Baturina is the widow of Moscow's former mayor, Yuri Lushkov. He was fired in 2010 over corruption allegations. The report says Baturina wired $3.5 million to Biden's Rosemont Seneca Thornton in 2014 as part of a consultancy agreement. In 2017, Baturina's company Hightex got a contract to build the Canopy of Peace project at the World War II Museum in New Orleans. The museum told the Epoch Times it had no knowledge of any relationship between the Bidens and Baturina's company. It said it chose Hightex because the company was the most qualified bidder. Democratic nominee Joe Biden hosted a fundraiser at the museum in August 2019, in the early stages of his presidential campaign. There's no evidence of a link between Baturina's wire and the contract awarded to the museum, but questions may emerge about both transactions. Senate Republicans discovered the payments after they were flagged due to her reported criminal activity. In 2015, Baturina also wired Rosemont Seneca over $241,000. It was forwarded to a Buffalo-based tablet manufacturer. The company eventually went bankrupt, claiming it was $39 million in debt. Baturina didn't immediately respond to a request for comment.
Discarded mail-in ballots cast by military members for President Trump were discovered in Pennsylvania. It's the second lot of discarded ballots found this week. The FBI and local police are investigating the incident.
Early voting started this month in many states, and already mail-in ballots are being found discarded. It's one of the biggest concerns surrounding election integrity this November. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany announced the findings this afternoon.
In fact, in the last 24 hours, police in Greenville, Wisconsin, found mail in a ditch, and it included absentee ballots. And also, I can confirm for you that Trump ballots, ballots for the president, were found in Pennsylvania. And
the Justice Department confirmed that the ballots were from members of the U.S. military. The statement read, "Investigators have recovered 9 ballots at this time. Some of those ballots can be attributed to specific voters and some cannot. Of the 9 ballots that were discarded and then recovered, 7 were cast for presidential candidate Donald Trump. The contents of the other 2 ballots are unknown." The DOJ said the envelopes had been resealed by local election staff before they were recovered by the FBI. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders brought up the issue of election fraud. He shared what he thinks needs to happen to avoid chaos on November 3rd.
With the pandemic and a massive increase in mail-in voting, state legislatures must take immediate action now, to allow mail-in votes to be counted before Election Day as they come in.
Both Republicans and Democrats have expressed concern over election fraud and complications resulting from large-scale absentee voting this year.
House Democrats are set to propose new legislation that would limit Supreme Court justices' terms to 18 years. The legislation would allow every president to nominate 2 justices per 4-year term. Justices do not currently have term limits. The average tenure stands at more than 25 years. The bill states that current justices would be exempt, but those appointed under the new rules would become senior upon retirement and rotate to lower courts. Representative Ro Khanna of California is sponsoring the bill, which will be unveiled next week. Capitol Hill Baptist Church is suing against an order that limits its congregations' gatherings. The order was put in place by D.C.'s mayor and local government.
Members of an historic congregation are barred from meeting in person to worship. The restrictions were put in place after an order was issued March 11th by District Mayor Muriel Bowser. Capitol Hill Baptist Church is located just a few blocks from Congress. Leaders of the church have appealed to D.C. officials since then, but nothing has changed so far. Currently, all indoor and outdoor church meetings of 100 or more are barred. That's even if participants wear masks and social distance, like when visiting a local business. So a senior pastor and elders from the church reluctantly filed suit against the edict. The lawsuit requests permission for church members to meet in person with similar restrictions to businesses in the area. They say meeting together as one congregation is a deeply held religious conviction and can't be replaced.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says both he and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi have agreed to restart stimulus talks. He said they've spoken about 15 to 20 times in the last few days about the continuing resolution, and Pelosi said she expects negotiations to continue soon. The House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal said new efforts are underway this week. That's after the Federal Reserve Chairman said lawmakers need to give more support for the economy. Neal predicted that a vote could come within days, but House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy says the new initiative is partisan. Pelosi also faces pressure from moderate House Democrats. They say they want to see bipartisan aid proposals that have a chance of becoming law. House Democrats have rolled out a series of bills aimed at curbing presidential powers. The reform package is called the Protecting Our Democracy Act. It would give Congress more oversight in investigations and provide more protections for whistleblowers. NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us more details.
Government having
Speaker Pelosi and the chairs of various House committees have unveiled legislation that will supposedly restore checks and balances and root out corruption. The Democrats' Protecting Our Democracy Act expands on post-Watergate reforms preventing the president from abusing power. The act has virtually no chance of becoming law while the GOP controls the Senate and the White House, but it does give an indication of how Democrats would govern if they win in November and gives their members an anti-corruption platform to run on ahead of the election.
This package is future-focused, intended to restore checks and balances not only during this term, but for any future president.
The sweeping legislation aims to curb presidential powers by requiring the Justice Department and the White House to send Congress information on presidential pardons. It would also do away with the statute of limitations for the president so that the office can't be used as a shield to avoid legal consequences. U.S. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney from New York introduced the Inspector General Independence Act as part of the reforms.
This landmark legislation will strengthen protections for inspector generals by only allowing an IG to be removed for specific reasons and prevent them from being fired for political retaliation.
This comes partly as a response to President Trump's terminating the Obama-appointed State Department Inspector General Steve Linick at the request of Secretary Pompeo. Pompeo said that Linick refused to follow orders to investigate documents allegedly leaked from his office and that he undermined the State Department's mission. The Democrats' plan outlines provisions to protect U.S. elections. One example is that it requires political committees to report any foreign contracts to the FBI, which in turn must report that information to congressional intelligence committees. What's more, the reform package protects the anonymity of whistleblowers and clarifies the right of government employees to provide information directly to Congress. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
A stopgap funding bill has hit a roadblock in the Senate. The bill would keep the federal government operating through December 11th. It's now unlikely to be finished before next Wednesday's deadline. Democrats use procedural rules to extend the debate. It's part of their protests over Republicans' move to fill a Supreme Court vacancy. Republican Senator John Thune said the Senate could have finished work this week, but that Democrats insisted on a delay. The legislation would continue funding most programs at current levels, thereby avoiding a government shutdown. A grand jury in Kentucky announced on September 23rd that only one of 3 officers would be charged with wanton endangerment. Since then, riots have erupted nationwide as people express their outrage. 127 people have been arrested in Louisville.
Officer Brett Hankinson was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment when he shot 10 rounds into Breonna Taylor's apartment. Activists wanted the officers charged with murder, but an investigation found the shooting was justified because Taylor's boyfriend fired at the cops first. This decision has sparked a series of riots all around the country. 2 officers were shot in Louisville.
Right there, officer down.
We spoke to Mark Ruskin, a former undercover FBI agent and former assistant district attorney for Brooklyn, on the legality of the facts surrounding the case and whether a murder charge was appropriate in this situation.
Bringing a murder charge under these circumstances would have been totally inappropriate. The officers were executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation and were not there to intentionally commit a homicide.
On March 13th, 3 officers executed a search warrant at Breonna Taylor's apartment. Evidence showed that the officers knocked and announced their presence. Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, admits to shooting Sergeant Mattingly first. Afterwards, the officers shot back a total of 16 times. Breonna Taylor was shot 6 times, and only one of the shots was fatal. Ruskin said the use of force or lethal force is justified if the agent or an innocent person is in imminent danger of physical injury. Ruskin also refuted the idea that the grand jury was influenced to rule one way or another by the Attorney General.
The fact that they did bring charges against the one officer who did fire multiple rounds seems to indicate that they really did pay attention and thought about it carefully.
He went on to say that he thinks people's disappointment over the results was not a question of legality or judiciality, but an issue of politics. Ruskin emphasized the FBI investigation is ongoing and noted that there could be a tightening of policies in the police department. He questioned whether a midnight entry was necessary, given that Taylor was not the principal target. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Coming up, street vendors in New York City fighting for more permits. They're demanding the City Council pass a bill that will gradually expand the number of licenses. And a section of basketball court autographed by Kobe Bryant is up for auction. The piece could sell for $500,000 or more. That and more after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
New York City street vendors held a rally calling for the City Council to pass a bill in their favor. The legislation would increase the number of food stand permits in the city and replace NYPD oversight with a unit specifically dedicated to enforcing street vending laws. NTD's Don Tran has the details.
Street vendors and their supporters are continuing to demand for more permits to do business without fear of being penalized. For years, they have pushed for the passage of Bill 1116, which will issue batches of permits to food vendors each year until 2029.
We got to pass this bill as quickly as we can. We have the support in the committee.
The bill has gained sponsorship from 30 council members, including council members Margaret Shin and Carlos Menchaca, who were both in attendance. Here in New York City, the current limit to the number of available permits is 4,000. Street vendors have to wait as long as 20 years to get one, and so many see no choice but to rent one from the black market or to sell their food without a permit, which could lead them to being fined or arrested. One of the advocates pointed out the city's $9 billion budget deficit. He said the bill will help the city recover by bringing in more revenue.
So not only are we creating small businesses and economic opportunity, but once again, vendors can have a role in actually helping our city recover.
The bill also includes having a dedicated vending law enforcement unit to oversee street vendors instead of the NYPD. Street vendors have been opposed to police officers because of alleged harassment.
And the very important piece here is that we really need an enforcement unit that works with the community and support them, not penalize them.
Other qualifications the unit needs to meet is to be well-trained and fluent in multiple languages. Don Tran, NTD News, New York.
As a U.S. House panel awaits a report on big tech, the panel is seeking proposals to strengthen antitrust laws and restore online competition. The Antitrust Subcommittee of the House Judiciary Committee is expected to soon release its report. It's a deep dive into antitrust allegations against 4 of America's largest tech companies. That's Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Alphabet's Google. The company's 4 chief executives testified before the panel in July. A hearing for the proposals is planned for October 1st. Firefighters are looking to Silicon Valley's innovation engine to produce new tools to help extinguish deadly blazes. Some new tech was tried out during this year's record-breaking wildfire season in California.
As wildfires leave a wake of destruction in the American West, innovators and firefighters are hoping new technology can give them the edge they need. One idea is Squishy, a robot made at the University of California, Berkeley, which can be dropped into a fire with cameras and gas sensors, currently being tested by fire departments in other states.
So what we have is an exterior protective structure and an interior brain that carries chemical sensors, cameras, and communications equipment.
Lead mechatronics engineer Douglas Hutchings says some investors have already shown interest in the resilient robot. Public safety startups have found it hard to find funding from traditional venture capitalists who don't see money to be made selling to cash-strapped fire departments.
So the zones that you would want to be alerting during that actual live event.
But there's potentially life-saving technology out there, such as an evacuation platform by startup Zonehaven. It links maps with residents, police, and fire departments and can simulate where fires will spread with weather so they know when to get people out of harm's way. CEO Charlie Crocker said it has already been useful this year.
During the CZU complex fire, we were really lucky to have already built out zones for Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, and San Mateo County.
Record wildfires killed dozens of people along the West Coast this summer and threatened some people who call the tech hub of Silicon Valley home. Dave Winokur is the Moraga Orinda Fire District Chief, and people in his zone responded to his call for high-tech help.
A significant number of UC Berkeley faculty live in the fire district. That gives me the ability to reach out informally to quote-unquote academic advisors, class researchers, and so forth.
Data analysis firm Splunk has created a $50 million social impact fund that could be used for fire relief projects.
A TikTok challenge has led to an FDA investigation. On Thursday, the federal agency announced it is looking into reports of teens participating in the so-called Benadryl challenge. The over-the-counter medicine is used to treat allergies. Teenagers in the challenge are encouraged to take large doses of the drug. According to the FDA, teens have reportedly ended up in emergency rooms with serious injuries, and some may have died. The FDA warns that taking too much Benadryl can lead to severe health problems, even death. It says it contacted TikTok about its urging the app to remove videos of the challenge from its platform. An autograph section of the Staples Center basketball court is going up for auction. It came from Kobe Bryant's last game and complete with his signature. It is expected to bring in $500,000 or more.
One with the number 24 and one with 8, the two numbers he wore during his career. The section with 24 is believed to be in the organization's practice facility. The 8 was sold at auction for charity.
And most fans will remember that as one of, if not the greatest farewell performance in the history of sports.
The seller will donate 10% of the proceeds from the sale to the Mamba and Mambacita Sports Foundation. While the sale is titled Michael Jordan and Basketball Icons, the Bryant item is the most significant. Jerseys and game-worn sneakers by Jordan are also included in the 375-lot sale. Items from today's NBA stars, including LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Luka Doncic, are also featured in the sale, which runs online until October 3rd.
Coming up, a dam has collapsed in northeastern China, flooding 10,000 acres of crops. That's as a second round of flooding builds in a major river.
Some people say dress your age. That's ridiculous. Age is just an illusion. How you show up for the world, that's what's real. What's your idea? I put it out there with the GoDaddy website.
Are you looking for a news source that does not spin the truth, doesn't push any false narratives, and instead presents you with the facts and lets you make up your own mind? Then go to readepic.com and try the Epic Times newspaper for yourself. It's pure honest journalism that's based in traditional values.
Five Republican senators are urging Netflix to reconsider plans to adapt a Chinese science fiction book trilogy into a TV series. They say the author has defended the Chinese regime's treatment of Uyghur Muslims.
5 Republican U.S. senators have urged Netflix to drop plans for a TV adaptation of a Chinese science fiction series. Lawmakers led by Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee take issue with the author of The Three-Body Problem, Liu Cixin, and his defense of China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims. Netflix announced earlier this month it would be turning the book and its 2 sequels into an English-language live-action TV series led by the creators of smash hit Game of Thrones. Liu is set to serve as a consulting producer. The senators pointed to Liu's comments in a 2019 interview in The New Yorker. He was asked about China's clampdown on Muslims in the Xinjiang region, where a United Nations report has estimated that around 1 million people, mostly ethnic Uyghurs, were detained in camps and subjected to ideological education. Liu was quoted as saying, "Would you rather that they be hacking away at bodies at train stations and schools in terrorist attacks? If anything, the government is helping their economy and trying to lift them out of poverty." The United States and human rights groups have criticized China's treatment of Uyghurs, but China's foreign ministry has repeatedly denied the existence of internment camps in Xinjiang, calling the facilities vocational and educational institutions, and accusing what it calls anti-China forces of smearing its Xinjiang policy. In their letter to Netflix, the senators said Netflix's decision to adapt the three-body problem amounted to, quote, normalization of the Chinese government's crimes, and asked Netflix to seriously reconsider the implications of providing a platform to Mr. Liu in producing this project. Netflix had no immediate comment.
A major river in northeast China has been struck by even more flooding. Heavy rains upstream have caused a dam to collapse, and the overflow has soaked 10,000 acres of crops. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
First, we turn to the flooding in China. China's most northern province, named Heilongjiang, has recently been hit by flooding. Early Tuesday morning, a dam in Daqing City collapsed. The resulting flood soaked more than 11,000 acres of rice fields. The damage has rendered farmers' efforts for the year useless. One farmer shot a clip of the scene, saying that locals are facing major difficulty. He explained that the crops were nearly ready to be harvested, but now suddenly everything is gone. Elsewhere in Heilongjiang, a second wave of flooding was building in the Songhua River on Tuesday. China's Ministry of Water Resources says it's due to heavy rain upstream. By Wednesday, the river's water level had exceeded its overflow warning level by 4 inches. Some parts of the river are now impassable by boat. A video taken the same day shows parts of a riverside park completely submerged. This year, China's national rainfall average has surged 13% higher than normal. It's the second highest recorded in the last 60 years. More than 800 rivers across the country have suffered or are suffering from overflowing water levels and floods. That's a whopping 80% higher than normal. Students in a college in North China were heard calling out and screaming at night. They were protesting against the campus being under lockdown. Soon after, students at a college in South China were following suit. China has reported very few cases of the Chinese Communist Party or CCP virus across the country. But students from many colleges are finding their campuses put on lockdown, and the students are protesting. After students from Xi'an International Studies University shouted from inside their dorm rooms for nearly 30 minutes on Sunday night. Students from Guangzhou Institute of Technology did the same on Wednesday. Besides the lockdown, the students are disgruntled about high prices in the school cafeteria and garbage stinking around the dorm. Zhang Ming, a senior student at the college, told us an average of 1,000 people in each dorm building rely on several small garbage bins. The garbage starts piling up after just half a day. To protect our interviewees' identities, we gave them pseudonyms. Freshman Zhao Jing said no one takes care of the garbage. She told us that once, when she and several other students went back to the dormitory at night, they all vomited because of the horrible smell of the trash. Zhao said such an environment breeds bacteria and mosquitoes, and rats are everywhere. Zhao also said the prices at the school cafeteria are twice as high as those outside. And there's no price tag on the items. Students pay whatever price the shop salesperson asks. She added since students aren't allowed to go off campus to eat, the waiting lines in the cafeterias are long during peak hours every day. Sometimes students have to wait half an hour to get food. The final trigger for the nighttime screaming protest was the shortening of the National Day holiday that takes place around October 1st. The school will allow students 4 days off instead of the usual 8. If the students want to go out of school, they have to get approval from various levels as well as their parents. Some students are questioning if it's realistic to have all 10,000 students apply for an approval.
Coming up, 2 mobile app makers are denouncing Apple. They're pushing for action against what they call the tech giant's monopoly on apps and controls on developer freedom. A new survey says paying their bills on time is most important to Americans right now, more important than saving money. More on that after the break.
He ascended to the throne during the most turbulent times in the Joseon dynasty. Despite that, he treated his people well, had great ambitions, and led the country towards a new renaissance. That eventually earned him the title as one of the wisest kings in Korean history. Lee Sun on NTD America.
Jerome Powell and Stephen Mnuchin say $200 billion of federal aid from the CARES Act is still unused. They say it could be reallocated to help American businesses and workers. The Federal Reserve's lending program for small businesses is significantly underused. Powell estimates it will use just $10 to $30 billion out of an allocated $600 billion by the end of the year. At the hearing, lawmakers pressed Powell how the money should be used.
What's the single higher and better use?
To me, it would be PPP, and it would be PPP, and then after that I would say something more for those who remain unemployed.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, do you disagree or agree with that?
No, I do agree with that. Not just that money, but the $200 billion that I have on the sidelines.
The PPP program has now expired with $130 billion left unused. Mnuchin says it would be his first priority to get approval from Congress to tap and send to needy firms. A group of Apple's critics are pushing for legal and regulatory action to challenge the iPhone maker's App Store prices.
2 hugely popular mobile apps are joining forces to take on Apple in a battle over its App Store purchases. The music streaming service Spotify and Fortnite creator Epic Games are banding together with several smaller developers in what they call the Coalition for App Fairness. In a tweet, the coalition said it will fight to end Apple's monopoly and level the playing field. Epic said in a tweet Thursday, "Developer freedoms are under attack. We are joining at App Fairness to defend and reclaim the fundamental rights of all creators."
Blue Cross Blue Shield has reached a tentative $2.7 billion antitrust settlement. It's to resolve claims that the insurance group's member companies tried to limit competition and boost prices for shareholders. Their proposed settlement would drop a rule that 2/3 of each member company's revenue must come from Blue-branded businesses. It would also relax rules requiring national employers to seek coverage through Blue insurers. It would give smaller one-state insurers a hold on major clients. Blue Cross Blue Shield's 36 member companies still have to approve the settlement. The U.S. District Judge overseeing the litigation also has to approve it. A new survey says paying bills on time is a top priority for many Americans, even over saving money, which comes in at number 2. We asked people in New York how their spending habits have changed recently. NTD's Phil Zoe reports.
A new report from Bankrate shows 46% of Americans consider paying bills on time their top priority. That's the highest percentage recorded in the last 8 years. Coming in second was saving more money with 28%. We spoke to Bankrate's chief financial analyst, Greg McBride.
The majority of Americans are focused on one of two financial priorities, either staying current or getting caught up on the bills or saving more money. I think
saving and paying bills on time, because if I fall behind on the bills, then my economy situation is going to get worse. And saving because we don't know what's looming after the pandemic.
The report said paying your bills on time is a top priority across the board. Regardless of age or income, at least 7 out of every 10 people said they've made progress on their financial priorities. One person says she always pays her bill on time to avoid penalties.
Yeah, paying bills, because I don't want to be hit up with any penalty fees, and I just want to stay on track and make sure everybody gets paid.
And across the income spectrum, people still say that their top financial priority is just staying current or getting caught up on the bills. And that's the number one answer, whether you're a high-income household or a low-income household.
Another person says she's saving money by buying items when they're on sale.
Buy things when they're on sale. Grocery prices have gone up really high, so I'm trying to avoid buying things that I don't really need or trying to buy things when they're on sale.
More than 70% of Americans say they are making progress. Even among those that are focused on paying the bills, about 2/3 said that they had made progress on that.
Someone said he stopped buying luxury items and is only spending on necessities.
We take away some of the luxuries that we normally afford ourselves, such as vacations. That's a secondary thing. And then we also try to tighten the belt a little bit around the house and not, spoil ourselves very often.
Another person says she pays all her bills and is saving more money by cooking at home.
The grocery shopping, a lot of cooking, we ended up saving at least probably 20% to 30% more.
Paying down debt and helping out friends and family round out the top 4 choices. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
Target is gearing up for the holiday season. The retailer announced new plans for employees as it expects to see an increase in contactless shopping during the holidays. Target says it's doing double the number of team members devoted to drive up and order pickup. Distribution centers will hire more seasonal workers compared to last year, and additional employees will be posted at storefronts to focus on safety, cleaning, and greeting guests. The retailer plans to hire around 130,000 workers. Up next, the UK doesn't recognize results of Belarus's rigged election and is preparing Magnitsky sanctions against individuals responsible for human rights violations.
Violence, war, lies, famine, slaughter, tyranny. The devil's arrangements are present in both the East and the West. Turned religion, the family, politics, the economy, finance, military affairs, education, the academy, the arts, the media, entertainment, all into battlefields. Communist ideology is an ideology of the devil, the initiator of an unrestricted war on mankind. The question is, why are there so many people who harbor romantic fantasies about communism, help the devil spread its lies, even becoming its obedient tools, to deceive, co-opt, coerce, confuse, and so overturn traditional thought, subvert order, create upheaval, and to divide and conquer with the objective of gaining global control?
Over to Europe, Belarus President Lukashenko's abrupt swearing-in has triggered a quick and strong reaction. The UK, the US, and Canada are preparing Magnitsky sanction listings. NTD UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Thanks. Welcome to our NTD UK newsroom, bringing UK and European news. The UK is preparing Magnitsky sanctions against individuals in Belarus over its human rights violations.
British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab spoke about the UK's position after President Alexander Lukashenko was abruptly sworn in.
First of all, we do not accept the results of this rigged election. Second, we condemn the thuggery deployed against the Belarusian people.
Raab has directed the Foreign Office's sanctions team to make preparations.
And we are coordinating with the United States and Canada to prepare appropriate listings as a matter of urgency.
The EU is reviewing its relations with Belarus and says Lukashenko's abrupt swearing-in goes directly against Belarusian people's will and lacks any democratic legitimacy. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Belarus's capital Minsk after the inauguration. Security forces detained nearly 400 protesters and fired water cannons to disperse crowds, leaving several people injured. Lukashenko claimed a landslide victory in the August 9th election. Since then, his forces have detained or driven out all of Belarus's leading opposition figures, arrested thousands of protesters and clamped down on news reporting.
The UK government unveils its new job support scheme, replacing the furlough scheme.
Under the new programme, workers can get 3/4 of their normal salary for 6 months, as long as their employers keep them on for 1/3 of their normal hours.
This scheme absolutely does incentivise shorter time working.
Britain's existing furlough scheme, which supported around 9 million jobs at its peak in May, is due to stop at the end of October. Workers cannot be made redundant while they are on the new job support scheme.
And our new scheme will ensure that we do provide support to those who need it the most and protect as many viable jobs as possible.
The new scheme begins November 1st and will cost the government around an estimated $400 million a month. All small and medium-sized businesses are eligible for the scheme.
England and Wales launch a new COVID-19 contact tracing app after months of delays.
Using Bluetooth, the app keeps a record of contact between people who have it installed. It instructs users to self-isolate if it detects they've been in close proximity to someone COVID-19 positive.
What the app can do is find the contacts that human contact tracers can't find.
If users ignore the app's self-isolation instruction, they won't be fined, as the authorities can't identify either party.
That self-isolation is voluntary.
The app also has a check-in scanner to alert users if a venue they have visited is found to be an outbreak hotspot. People can order test kits and claim financial support through it. The government encourages anyone aged 16 or over to install the app.
And the more people who download it, the safer we'll be.
The app can't be installed on tablets or smartwatches and doesn't work on some older smartphones.
And US carmaker Tesla is pressing on with plans to build a new $1.1 billion factory near Berlin, Germany. Locals have filed hundreds of complaints against Tesla's new plant. Their grievances range from noise pollution to water scarcity and the clearing of trees for the factory, which is being built at a former pine tree plantation. According to a local planning consultation panel, environmental authorities received assurances on water usage. The new plant will be Tesla's first major production centre in Europe. The company has facilities in a number of other European countries. Production at the new plant is scheduled to begin July 2021. And Austria's government is welcoming skiers, but warns that après-ski is off the menu.
Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz says skiing, eating out and outdoor activities will all be possible, but skiers must sit at tables in bars rather than dance on them.
What won't be possible is après-ski the way we know it from the past. The risk of infection is simply too high.
Bars became a breeding ground for the virus last season, fueling several outbreaks. Germany has already issued a travel warning for one Austrian skiing region, the province of Vorarlberg.
This creates a very threatening situation for us, and we will do everything to get the numbers of infections down.
As for the ski resorts, skiers are required to stay at least 3 feet apart and face masks are required at all times except on the slopes.
That's all for today. Back across to New York.
Still to come, ancient Roman ruins take center stage in the world's largest outdoor AR experience. It's helping locals experience history in a new way. That and more after the break.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? for spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years, even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
In Rome, although the pandemic is keeping tourists away, locals are rediscovering one of the city's most popular ruins.
The vast emptiness Circus Maximus ruins in Rome were once home to the greatest racetrack of the Roman Empire. In its heyday, it could accommodate 250,000 spectators. But now it's drawing audiences in a whole new way, virtually. According to the city of Rome, the attraction is now the largest outdoor AR experience in the world. Due to the lack of international visitors amid travel restrictions, Romans are first in line to experience the virtual time travel.
It's a great experience. It shows you how the Circus Maximus was at the time, something I didn't expect. It's a grass field now, but at the time it was like a theater. It's quite unique. I'm loving it so far.
Another Rome resident, Analia Belli, said she found the virtual rendition refreshing.
It's one thing to see images in a history book. It's another thing to see it this way.
Using augmented reality, the 40-minute guided walk takes visitors from the valley floor of the circus at the dawn of Roman settlements to gruesome chariot races in the imperial age. The tech helps immerse visitors in the action. Maria Letizia Bonfilio, the Circus Maximus curator, said recreating the story behind the largest entertainment venue of imperial Rome took a team of experts. And they had help from Italian augmented reality company GSNet, which supervised this project. The company's CEO, Massimo Spaggiari, explained it took about 13,000 lines of code and more than 2 billion polygons to achieve success.
Imagine managing all those polygons in real time that needed to appear in life-size dimensions and perfectly grounded in their place and perfectly synchronized from any observation point.
The augmented reality tour relies on position tracking software, GPS, and real-time light estimation. But the biggest challenge was creating historically accurate visuals. The Circo Maximo experience runs until the last week of October and is set to return for the 2021 tourist season.
In Paris, as the pandemic keeps tourists away from staying in the city, mysterious guests took to a hotel. Our France correspondent David Vives has the story.
The 3-star Hotel La Regent usually welcomes American tourists. Due to the CCP virus, bookings have been running low. But rooms aren't empty anymore. For about 10 days, teddy bears have been in the hotel, turning it upside down. They drink coffee in the hall, stare at 18th century paintings, show off at the windows, and have a break on a terrace in the manager's company.
I asked Philippe, a bear manager, if I could have bears in my hotels. He asked me whether I was kind enough to deal with them. I answered yes, then asked the hotel to welcome a bear congress.
According to the bear manager, teddy bears are about kindness and smiles.
Don't worry, big boy. Everything will be fine. Here's your mask.
2 years ago, he started to lend these bears to people in his neighborhood for free, and the outcome made him want to do more.
I used to sell newspaper in the morning and sleep in the afternoon. This time to sleep is now over. I'm driving across Paris, picking up bears, lending or giving bears to people. I put them in the bear mobile. They always forget to fasten their seatbelt on the way. I think this is a Parisian mindset.
During challenging times due to the CCP virus pandemic and lockdown, these bears have a magic effect.
These bears brought a lot of joy with them to the neighborhood. Some people came to us to show support, asking questions.
The fame of these bears has crossed the oceans. Philippe said he receives pictures of bears from countries all around the world. But traveling is challenging, as the big boys always travel on a passenger seat in planes. He said he now waits for an airline to be his official partner, a further step to scale up the circulation of the teddy bears. Reporting by David Vivez, NTD News.
And that's all for now. Catch us again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Jasmina Davis.